Let's go ahead and go with the roll call.
Present.
We are live.
Dr. Bibby is present. Ms. Busby? Ms. Busby is not in attendance. Ms. Bradford? Ms. Bradford is not present. Mr. Garvey?
Here.
Mr. Garvey is present. Mr. Diaz?
Present.
Mr. Diaz is present. Ms. Harris?
Present.
Ms. Harris is present. Ms. Hill? Present. Ms. Hill is present. Dr. Lampy? Dr. Lampy is not present. Ms. Orange Jones?
Present.
Ms. Orange Jones is present. Mr. Romer?
I'm here. I'm sorry.
Ms. Smith? Here. Ms. Smith is present. You have the floor.
Okay. First item, please.
The first item is on page 1, item 2.1, consideration of the request from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Charter School to transfer to the jurisdiction of the Orleans Parish School Board at the conclusion of the 2014-2015 school year. The department recommendation is to approve the OPSB Type 3B charter contract and to approve the transfer to OPSB contingent upon receipt of a fully signed copy of the contract approved by BESE at the April 15th BESE meeting no later than May 1st, 2015.
Okay.
Second.
Ms. Beebe, and second by Ms. Hill. You would like a comment? Mr. Superintendent?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay. Members, as you know, there is a process established in BESE rules and in state law regarding the return of schools from the Orleans Parish School Board. This is an historic day in that it is the first vote that we are asking you to take to note that a school has successfully completed the terms of those requirements and has elected to return. But it's more than that. Also, we have with us today not just Superintendent Dobart, whom you know well, but also Superintendent Henderson Lewis. Superintendent Lewis was previously, you know him as the superintendent from the East Feliciana Public School System, where he did some exceptional work. I knew him as a principal at Algiers Technology Academy in New Orleans. But I will tell you, what you see today is not just the great work done by Doris Hicks at Martin Luther King and her team, but is also Superintendent Lewis's work. He was selected recently, and by my distant observation, has gotten to work immediately and insisted to me that this return happen immediately. He worked with Superintendent Dobart to make it happen, and Superintendent, I commend you for being such a fast mover in such a short period of time. So congratulations to you, and I urge this your passage of this motion.
Do we have any questions or comments from BESE members? Let's hear from Mr. Dobart.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, Patrick Dobart, Superintendent, Louisiana Recovery School District, and I just want to echo the sentiments that Superintendent White just shared. This has been a long time coming in the sense that we've had a number of schools that have been eligible for return, and this school exceedingly has shown great growth, and they've also shown a commitment to serve our children, which I think is phenomenal and a testament to the work that we do in New Orleans and around our state. As I look around nationally, it's often said that charter schools don't serve our kids. However, as an example with Martin Luther King Charter, they've shown that you can serve all kids, that they do, and that they will perform at a high standard that has been established by this board. So it's just really an exciting time, but we also know that we have much work ahead of us to continue to ensure that equity is across the board for our students. And I just want to welcome Superintendent Lewis on board as well, because as the Superintendent White said, in a very short period of time, he's been able to move on this to ensure that we solidified it. It was extremely important to him coming into his role, and I'm just grateful and glad and honored to be able to sit next to him today at this historic time as we see a school return back to Orleans Parish, and that we will see that it continues to flourish and we continue to create an environment for all of our other schools. So we thank you for all of your support, and I just hand it over to Superintendent Lewis.
Thank you, Superintendent Dobart. Good afternoon, committee. Henderson Lewis, Orleans Parish Superintendent. Yes, this is a very historic day for the city of New Orleans as we have our first school to return back to the Orleans Parish School Board. This has been a wonderful process where our charter office was able to work along with the State Department and the Recovery School District to make sure that not only that we have a school that's returning, but we have a school that's returning under the same equity requirements that it has been under the Recovery School District. And this is a very, again, historic event for us, because as we continue to work day in and day out to build an infrastructure in the city of New Orleans so that our schools that have the opportunity to return will consider to come back to the Orleans Parish School Board. But again, I thank the Recovery School District and the state for working along with us as the Orleans Parish School Board to make sure that we have an agreement that we all can be proud of, and that we can stand together to say that we are standing for public education in the city of New Orleans. So again, I thank everyone for your involvement in this process. Thank you very much.
Mr. Superintendent, I'd like to welcome you to Orleans Parish and wish you good luck.
Thank you.
I hope that more charter schools decide to go back from the RSD to Orleans Parish School Board control.
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
I second that, Superintendent Lewis. Just thank you for your leadership on this particular issue, which is, I agree, so historic and important to our city, to our children, and
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank
I
you.
look forward to working together.
Same here. Thank you so much.
Ms. Beebe?
Thank you, Mr. Garvey. Again, congratulations, Superintendent Lewis, and you. Your comments inspired me to congratulate you and the Orleans Parish School Board, and I know great things will continue to happen.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we have a speaker on this item, Karen Harper Royal, who was just here a minute ago. Okay, while she's outside, if she comes back in a minute, we'll recognize her. But in the meantime, I want to get clarification from the superintendent. This action requires BESE approval, that's true?
Yes.
Okay, so we could decide not to approve this? We have to actively decide to approve this?
Correct.
Absolutely.
Okay, I would suggest that if the vote goes as I'm anticipating and we do approve this, that it will put the untruth to the claims of many people that BESE is looking to do nothing but take over schools and never return them. And as has been said several times, I think that points out a very historic moment, and I think a great moment. Ms. Harper Royal?
Yes, thank you, and good afternoon. My name is Karen Harper Royal, and I obviously am in support of the return of the Dr. Martin Luther King Charter School to the Orleans Parish School Board under the rules. But I also want to point out that it is a BESE rule that the superintendent has chosen to have schools decide if they want to go back. Couldn't BESE, if it wanted to, change the rule and say that all schools, the 30-something schools that are eligible to go back, shall go back? And I would encourage BESE to do that. And one of the reasons I'm encouraging you to do that, I don't know if you remember a few years back, you had a large group of parents from Berman Charter School who were here begging to go back to Orleans Parish. Berman Charter School has done very well almost from the beginning. And the parents wanted it to happen. There were some teachers who wanted it to go back, but it was the Algiers Charter School Association who said no. And if we really do value parent choice, there needs to be a little bit more give and take in this situation. And so I'm just going to encourage you to change the BESE rule and start maybe more proactively looking at these situations and engaging with those school communities, those parents and teachers at those schools, so that it doesn't end up being like what happened with Berman, where the parents and teachers wanted to go back and the board just said no. We really have to demonstrate that there is some real authentic community engagement around valuing what parents really want. And I know that at the Berman Charter School a few years ago, they were here. I was in the room. I probably have video of them talking about it. They wanted to go back. So if this is pursuant to a BESE rule, can BESE consider taking another look at that rule where you allow charters to decide? And let's make this be a more inclusive process that really looks at what parents want. And so that's just what my comments are.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Do we have any other speakers on this item? No? Okay. Do we have any other comments? Ms. Beebe?
Yes, and I want to speak to Ms. Karen Royal's, Ms. Harper Royal?
Harper Royal.
Oh, yes, okay. To her comments about the including parents and the board, as I can appreciate it, who determines the composition of the board? I know they're not elected. Is it the charter operator? And so I've always had concerns. I remember at the committee of the whole meeting, maybe a year or so ago, I said, you know, you leave it up to the board to decide whether or not to return the school to the Orleans Parish School Board. Well, if I have a successful school, I'm not going to give up that success. I would be unwilling to relinquish the school, but parents should have a voice. I mean, that's what we tout all the time, that parents are given choice, and certainly they should exercise that choice. So I've always been disturbed by the fact that the board makes the decision to return, not BESE, but the charter governing body, and that's just an observation.
Okay. Do we have any other BESE members who would like to comment or ask questions? Hearing none, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have any objections to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item.
Your next item is on page 3, item 2.2, consideration of a report regarding the closure of Lagniappe Academies of New Orleans. The department recommendation is to receive.
Before we go to this item, Ms. Royal, you had asked for us to wait. They are here. Okay. Okay, can I get a motion on the floor to that effect? Ms. Beebe, do you have a second? Ms. Bradford, thank you. Do we have any questions from BESE members?
I'd like to make a comment.
Ms. Beebe?
I want to thank Ms. Shan for adding this to the agenda item. I know that we had some email communication, and if you recall, at the March board meeting, the board took action on the Lagniappe school, and as I certainly I want to state that I don't condone the actions of that school, and I'm not speaking in support of administration at that school. But as I drove back home, I realized that the children and the parents are the victims of this situation. And, you know, oftentimes I question the need for an RSD superintendent, and we are told as a board that this is the oversight committee. And I still question how the school could find itself in this situation, because at the January meeting, if I recall, there was a recommendation to approve or to consider having the Lagniappe school return to the Orleans Parish School Board, and then as part of the exec rec, there was a recommendation to postpone that decision until the March meeting. And you know, I will say that the administration was totally incompetent, as I see it. But again, where was the oversight? And then I will give credit. There was a young man in the department who reached out to me, sent me some information, and I was unable to, I didn't find the time to return his call. He was willing to explain things to me. But once again, I think that BESE has a responsibility to ensure oversight, and we're paying individuals to oversee the situation at these charter schools. And then and I was told in an email communication that there is a process in place. But there was a news article that I will reference where it was stated, and I also recognize that sometimes news reports are they're not always accurate, but it's like the teachers took over or took control of the school. And so I will just relate to the protocol used in most school systems. For example, if something happens to administrator, the superintendent, based on the protocol, will implement protocol that will send in someone from the central staff to provide guidance. And I don't know that this did indeed happen. And then going back to this news article, a board member suggested, and I'm quoting, I don't know if it's factual, but I mean, it was in the news report, that the board member suggested closing the school earlier than scheduled. I think the last date was June something, and to save money so that we could pay teacher salaries. But I think this is just a great injustice to those students and to those parents. And it's like we give no consideration to the innocent victims. They're the victims, and then it was stated that there was the one-act process, and that parents had the opportunity to choose a school. But it's my understanding that the high-performing charters, parents did not have an option to enroll their children in the high-performing charters, that they would they could possibly enroll their children in the C, D, or F rated schools. So I think we have a serious concern here, a disconnect, and again with the oversight.
Dr. Beebe, just a couple of quick things. This is an extraordinary and an exceptional circumstance that we believed necessitated swift action, unprecedented. So the oversight was there. The oversight unearthed things that, be it a traditional public, a non-public, or a charter public school, were totally unacceptable, and they went to the heart of that organization. Now, it happened that it was coming up right when they were petitioning this board for renewal. So the obvious decision was, we cannot renew that school, and you made that decision as a board. So then the question is, where do we go from there? Because your assessment of the circumstance, and I see these young men sitting in front of me, and I'm assuming their parents or relatives with them. They are the victims. No question about that. They were the victims of incompetence before. They are the victims of this circumstance now. That is not for any debate. We all agree with that. The question is, what would you do about that? And I don't know if you're questioning, and I'm happy to engage in the dialogue, but if you're questioning what we did, I welcome that. But I would like to know what else excuse me.
Okay.
Thank you. What else should we have done? I would like to, in other words, you're suggesting, I believe, that they shouldn't be enrolled in the one-app process, that something else should have happened. So I guess I'm wondering, what would that be?
Well, I think as it relates to the situation at the school, that first of all, you send in administration, someone from the department. I mean, we have the Recovery School District personnel. They should go in until such time as that they could find another operator.
Okay, may I respond to that?
Yes.
I now understand. Okay. This school already had to seek a building somewhere else for this fall because they were out of space. They were operating on modulars, and they were $900,000 in the hole in their own bank account because they were out of funding to support modulars. For years, they had rejected public school buildings. So there is no traditional public school building for this school. They were out of space. They needed to move this fall anyways. It's 160 students, not a multiple hundreds, typical sized kid building for that reason. I don't say any of that to diminish the struggles and the pains of these young people and their families. Clearly, this is an unacceptable circumstance that we all bear responsibility for. At the same time, I'm bringing you the context of saying they were already looking for space elsewhere. They were already paying for this space themselves because they hadn't managed their facilities situation competently either. Thus, there is no other building for this school, and their enrollment is so small because they essentially weren't even operating with a public school facility. So the question is, do we go out and do we buy a 35, 25, 30, 40, whatever it is, $1 million worth of building in the middle of the city of New Orleans to suit 160 kids? The answer to that can't be yes, obviously. We do not have those resources. It wouldn't be, there is no proposal to serve these kids. It is the unfortunate within an unfortunate circumstance, but the best option among them to have the children choose or have their families choose the best environment for them elsewhere.
Okay, but if the allegations, you know, those allegations surface, but we would have approved, let's say those allegations had not appeared at the time they did, well, we would have likely approved the recommendation to transfer to the Orleans Parish School Board. So what would they have done in that case? They would still need a facility,
I don't believe that's right, because we had already raised these allegations prior to them electing to go back to the Orleans Parish School Board. In fact, I don't mean to speculate, but my sense of the situation is that part of the reason why they elected to go back to the Orleans Parish School Board was that they were concerned about these allegations. And frankly, as with the Milestone School, which you're familiar with in Jefferson Parish, I would have brought to you the same concerns about renewing their school based on their lack of adequate facilities that we did based on the special education situation. This is an extraordinary situation, unprecedented, where you have this level of violation and incompetence by the administration on the special ed front, but it is complemented by the fact that they do not have a building and that the nonprofit governing the school is in debt regarding a building they never should have had to pay for themselves anyways, but they did by choice. I say all that to say that you're right. Were this a school that actually had a building, they wouldn't just have 160 kids. Were this a school that actually had a building, we should go and find the operator. But this school at 160 kids in debt with no building is not viable to provide the services that these kids so badly need, which, by the way, may have been part of why they were denying kids these services in the first place. None of that is a good thing. All of it is inexcusable and evidence of incompetence. But it doesn't lead us to the direction of where would you go other than doing what we're doing with these youngsters.
Okay. Well, you've clarified that concern. But then what about the supervision of teachers currently? What mechanism is in place to ensure that teaching and learning are continuing, effective teaching and learning are occurring there with no administrator? Is there an administrator in place?
There is an administrator in place. As in any circumstance where we are closing out a school, we have staff on site. And our main focus, beyond just classroom, ensuring that the school is running, is ensuring that the placement is made. This happens in school systems and any school system on occasion, especially big urban school systems where you have something change. Children need to be placed elsewhere. So we have people on site working at the school to make sure that the kids are placed in other settings.
Okay, do we have any other BESE members that would like to comment on this? If not, we have some speakers, Mr. Harold Bailey and Anthony Parker. Mr. Bailey?
Just to introduce myself, I'm Anthony Parker, and this is Mr. Harold Bailey. Basically, part of the reason why we came down here is, one, because when you guys first had the meeting, we weren't presented with an opportunity or a feasible amount of time to prepare ourselves to come down here and voice our opinions for the recommendation to close the school. So with that being said, as Ms. Beebe stated earlier, we're suffering as victims. And we brought our children with us because we wanted them to see the faces that decided to take their teachers, their friends, and their daily course of life away from them. And we wanted them to look them in the eyes, since we have to look them in the eyes every day and explain to them why their great education is being stripped. We understand as parents that incompetent decisions were made. We get that. The administration is completely at fault. And the findings within that report were horribly egregious. I understand that. But to take 160 children, whether it's just 160 compared to 460, it's still 160 children, and change their course of life in the matter of an instant is unfair. It affects not only them for that moment, but the parents and the rest of that economy in that area. Because we don't know what type of long-term effects this is going to have on these kids' futures. They were in a stable environment, and I praise the staff and the teachers that are there currently, because not a one of them have quit. Not a single one of them has voiced a concern as far as feeling neglected and left out towards these children. They come to work every day since this has taken place to prepare my child and every other one of that 160 for life. They wake up knowing full well within the next 60 days they're not going to have a job. And instead of focusing on that, they're focusing on the 160 students that are preparing themselves to leave that school. Now, I understand that you said, sir, that there are issues as far as managing the business side of the school. And I get that. Everything revolves around the numbers. It's the way our society operates.
Mr. Harper?
Yes, sir.
Is Mr. Bailey going to speak also?
Yes.
Okay, but each speaker has 2 minutes to
Well, it
speak.
said 3 minutes on the card.
Well,
If you could allow
regardless.
us, we've been so inconvenienced, just in the grand scheme of things, as parents. This meeting itself, in and of itself, is inconvenient. Being in Baton Rouge, it took us a severe weather drive out here, risking the lives of all of us, in very hectic traffic in the Baton Rouge area, when the decisions for our school that were germane to our school were made in Baton Rouge, rather than when there was actually a BESE board meeting in the city of New Orleans prior to the decision being made. So with that being said, I think it's inconvenient. I think things are kind of out of touch with parents and teachers and students and the decision makers. I think it's just really inconvenient for us as parents. And let me give you a grand scope of the things that are going on. When I first picked this particular school, my son, both of my sons are back there, Harold and Hakeem. My younger son has autism, and so it was important for his doctor, I won't mention her name, but she was a neurologist at Oxnard Hospital, that he be in a small class size. And so this school had a small class size. Not only that, it was an A or B school. And that's what I was looking for as a parent. That's what all parents are looking for. We're looking for good schools for our children. And so we picked this school. We got into this school. Months later, I'm seeing successes in my child. You know, I have his IEP set up to where he's involved in a general education setting. And so on a grand scheme of things, this school, to me, myself, without looking at the numbers and figures or the different type of instances that are going on that I have no control over, that I don't even know about, though, that's telling me that this school is successful. As far as I know, I'm not privy to all the information. I actually attended the board meetings. I was actually doing the things I had to do as a parent. I attended, we actually began a parent meeting for parents to be involved more into the school. So with all that being said, I looked on you guys' department website, and it said Louisiana believes it is built on a premise that all children can achieve high expectations for learning, that is, and that those closest to children, parents and teachers, know better than government how to help students achieve those expectations. And so when we as parents were telling you guys, we've actually sent the email to all of you BESE board members. We've actually sent emails to the Louisiana Department of Education. We've actually sent emails to the Recovery School District, Mr. Patrick Dobart, Mr. Dana Peterson. We even created a petition to tell you guys we know what's best for our kids. And it says right here that parents and teachers together, standing hand in hand, know what's best for our children. And we told you guys loud and clear so many different ways that we know what's best, and closing down schools is not is not the answer. And so to Mr. White's comment about closing down schools because, at least closing down this particular schools because of the egregious violations that occurred. Okay, I get the violations, but do we close down every single school in New Orleans? Because that's what we would have to do, because there are violations at every single school. The information is out there. I know the parents at each and every individual school where the violations are occurring. And so we'll be closing down every school. So since we can't close down every single school in Orleans Parish, we have to do something different. And what's that different thing that we have to do? We have to go in and get there and find out what's going on, because no one has attended our school. I haven't seen a BESE board member at our school. I haven't seen a recovery school district head official at our school. I haven't seen anyone. So nobody has any on the ground. When America wins wars, we get a general out there. We get boots on the ground and we get generals out there. No general has been to our school to see what's going on at our school, to see the difficulties that parents are facing. We had 1 week to figure out what school we want to put our kids into. That was difficult for me. I wake up at 5:30 in the morning just to get my kids together, busing them to school, because I don't have the means to always get them to school in a timely fashion.
And I'm sorry for cutting you off,
Absolutely.
but even with that, there's still 9 families that weren't even able to get selected in school in the first round.
Yeah.
So what type of priority is that setting for these children? You're going to close the school and then tell them you may not make it into another school until July, when you got to go stand in a line with 3,000 other parents again.
And I was in that line this past summer. And we were standing in a long line wrapped around the block in the sweltering heat of the summertime. And trust me, I understand that we want to move time. But this is very important. We do have schools that are becoming available. As a matter of fact, I believe there are 2 or 3 schools that are moving into a new school building this fall. So with that being said, those schools will be available. We don't have to have all the lights on in the school, but we can have the first floor and maybe partial, bit of the second floor available to our Lanyap students, and we could be a Orleans Parish direct run school, because we've been scratching to get away from our recovery school district because there's no accountability. There's so many reports that say so. I mean, there's so much money that's been wasted. I mean, if you guys could just pay me $1 million, I'll find every single dollar. I promise you. Just privy me to all the things that you guys have been privy to, and to say that there's no accountability. At least, I'm sorry. You said incompetence and violations. The incompetence happened on your watch.
Right here.
I wasn't privy to all the things that you know, Mr. White, and I know maybe the people that you work for, you can throw it on them that they didn't tell you about what was going on at our school. But guess what? This has been happening for the past 2 years, as some reporters say, since 2012. And as a matter of fact, the report that was drafted up by you guys specifically said that this has been going on longer than this school year. The teachers that were listed in the report, they're no longer there. The parents that are in the report.
We're going to need you to wrap up your testimony.
Okay, I was one of the parents that was reached out to because I had a special needs student. And the leading questions that I was asked over the phone by the Louisiana Department of Education, it was a good thing I had a slight bit of education to be able to understand that I was being asked leading questions. You know what? I just decided to give unbiased information. But I said all of that to say this. 1 week is not enough time for us to pick another school, another successful school, and now I'm ending up with a school that is
not going to be
totally
feasible.
Opposite to the school that I have, at least to the community that we have at Lanyap. And if you guys are going to continue to close schools, this is not the way to do so. One, letting our children, I look at my sons every single morning, and I have to answer to them. You guys don't. And it's defeating me as a father to be able to say, in such a perilous environment, the city of New Orleans, where people are being shot and killed every single day. And the one consistent thing that most of these children have, a good thing my kids got a good home environment and school environment. Right. But there are kids on the other side that only have one consistent thing, which is a school environment. You guys have dismantled that for them.
You've taken it away.
We need you to wrap up.
I apologize. Well, thank you again. We ask that you reverse the decision to close Lanyap, and we would like to be a direct run Orleans Parish School Board school where we actually can be a part of the entire decisions that are to be made in regards to our school.
I'm close with this, and I'm done. There's rare opportunities that take place in life. You have one right now where you're hearing parents cry out to you. Rescind that decision.
Thank you.
Mr. Superintendent, can I ask you a question? If this group of parents wanted to submit a new application for a charter school to Orleans Parish School Board, could they do so?
Yeah, can they do so?
Sure.
That's what I thought. Okay,
So-
Mr. Eldon Anderson?
Repeat the question, because
If this group of parents wanted to submit an application to start a new charter school and submit it to the Orleans Parish School Board, could they do so? And the superintendent said yes.
well,
May I just provide a couple of bits of context also? And I want Superintendent Dobart to speak. First of all, Mr. Bailey and the other gentleman's name?
Anthony Parker.
Mr. Parker, I want to thank you for your comments. You're right that it did happen on my watch, and it was my recommendation to this board that we take action. I take responsibility for both of those things. It's the gravity that we understand the situation with that led us to make a conclusion that obviously nobody is happy about reaching. And so, on behalf of the school system, I apologize to you for what your family has gone through. By the same token, the relationship that this organization, this nonprofit organization, had with you, this board, was a contract. They violated that contract. And the decision you made was not one to intervene and close a school. It was when the time came for you to consider whether to sustain that covenant, you chose to not sustain that covenant on my recommendation, I believe appropriately. We are then left with what are the alternatives for the families in question. And we had an unfortunate situation here where a school had for years not accepted public space, had chosen to maintain their own space, had deliberately managed a low enrollment with a low budget that was unsustainable. And it's not a business decision per se, it's a question of what environment can you offer children. And so it was offered in trailers with no long-term plan for a long-term building and without the services needed as would be allowed for by a larger school. All of that leads us to a point of where there are not good options. But I don't believe that a decision is in front of this board one way or the other regarding that contract. You made a decision that that contract should not be sustained, and that is what it is. I would like Superintendent Dobart to clarify what is being done now in the school to ensure that there is appropriate oversight, to ensure that there are appropriate enrollment options. I also appreciate Mr. Bailey's acknowledgement that school staff is continuing to work with the kids, irrespective of the difficult situation involved.
Thank you, Superintendent Patrick Dobart, Superintendent Recovery School District. So first of all, we do have staff along with Department of Ed staff through the Office of Monitoring. We have people on site every week at the school. I also would say that the overall claim that there are these allegations or things that are not being followed up on is just simply not true. We act on every instance where we receive information about schools, if they're behaving appropriately or not. And I think just blanket statements are just not good, especially when you look at the hardworking and strong schools that we have and school leaders that we have. But we all take very seriously our responsibility. And again, this is an extremely difficult situation. You know, we feel extremely hurt over the matter that occurs anytime young people's education process is impeded. That it's hard for all of us. But at the same time, we do have a system in place, and we do have your leadership as a board that helps to guide us through these things, which allows us to try to make the best decisions in situations that are extremely difficult. And with that, we work very closely. Once the board made the final decision, we immediately called a parent meeting, and we were able to share with parents. And it was a very short, tight turnaround, again, why we couldn't make the decision to go into another RFA process, to just get parents to understand their options through enrollment. And we had over 79% of parents that basically took advantage of being enrolled NOLA using the one-app process. And we also see that 88% of the parents got one of their top 3 choices, and so as they received their choices this week. And again, they were very well informed. Our staff actually drove one day some parents around to see schools in a very short period of time. And again, it's not that anyone is not concerned or just callous about it. It's been a lot that's been poured into this. And again, Mr. Bailey and Mr. Parker have just been, truly remarkable in expressing their frustrations, and also just making sure that they do best for their children. And again, I am extremely sorry that the situation occurred, that the school did not live up to its contract and what it was supposed to do for them, not only them, but others there. And I also feel that we have reacted and responded in a way that's in the best wishes of the board, as well as what we feel is best for families. And so we'll continue to do that. We'll continue to be mindful and work with individuals. And again, we'll make it through, and we'll continue to provide a better education for these young people and their families going forward. Thank you.
Okay. We have a couple more speakers, Ms. Karen Harper Royal and Eldon Anderson. Ms.
Harvey,
Hill?
I have a question. Maybe, I don't know if Superintendent Patrick or White can answer this. As I've read through this recommendation, it says that LDOE recommendation was based on the loss of confidence in the ability and integrity of Lanyap to serve students with disabilities. And I listened to the parent that came forth. I see the mom over there in tears with her sons. And my question to either one of you who can answer the question, I remember reading an article that there was a lawsuit that was against the State Department, meaning because of RSD did not provide efficiency or adequate services to students with special ed. And as I sit here and I think of where we're moving, I have not really followed the actual Lanyap issue. But what I'm sitting here, and this was puzzling to me, is that the unfairness in our process of how we move forward with schools, period. Whether it's Lanyap, whether it's Dr. Martin Luther King, whether it's whatever school. And even when I look at L'Acy Francais, I visit that school. I went to that school twice. Dr. Beebe visited the school with me. And what they proposed to us as a board that we approved in a contract, they were not even implementing it within the school. In regards to the population of students that they said they were supposed to serve, which was low-income students, minority students. And when you went there, you didn't see that. And what they get? A brush. And they're still open. And so I guess that's my concern in regards to the policies. And when we make decisions, is it fair across the board? Or do we just do it for certain groups and certain schools? And as I listen to everyone that come here regarding the Recovery School District, there's no consistency. We make decisions based on, I don't know what they make the base. I really don't know. As a board member, I don't know, because I'm not in those backdoor conversations. I don't know. I only can come with what I hear and see from the parents. But we have to do something different, board. And I think, Superintendent, I hope you're able to, or maybe Patrick, I don't know. I mean, even with that situation, with the L'Acy Francais, even with the lawsuit, and these parents won this lawsuit. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. I mean, but we didn't shut down schools. And I just don't know Superintendent White or Superintendent
You said you had a question, Ms. Hill.
And
What's
my
the question?
question is how is there any liability in regards to not only this school, but other schools that are charter schools that have not implemented policies or violated policies? What is the consistency across the board of closing a school?
You know, we came to you this year with one school. Now, you're talking about a charter school system of 60,000 kids you oversee.
Mm-hmm.
Type 5s and Type 2s. 60,000 kids. One school this year came to you for a non-renewal. We worked and we worked and we worked to make sure all the other situations worked out. Where there are compliance issues, we checked it out. We tried to get Milestone through to its building. We ran the RFA process at John McDonough and so on. All those schools are still moving forward. There's one where we thought that the violations were so egregious that it needed swift action. Now, that's the same in the traditional public school system, where we do IDA monitoring just like led to this case, and where in a small number of cases we've brought forward corrective action plans. So I actually see the line as quite clear. We work with people to try to resolve issues, but there is a line where ethics and morals come into question, and that was the case here. And so we took action. And every time, Ms. Hill, that you take action like that, it may be the right thing to do, but it has negative consequences because it's a system of 60,000 kids. Someone is going to get hurt. And that's why we have to, I think, on one hand, respect what these people have brought to us today, knowing that we probably cannot assuage their concerns of these two families. But on the other hand, in a system of 60,000 kids, you're obligated to do what's right for the masses. And so what Superintendent Dobart said is that 88% of families got one of their top three choices. 69%, I believe, Patrick, got one of their top choice. And was that a better alternative than a school in trailers with no resource to provide programs that was incompetent in serving its kids? Yes. And so we stand by it.
Well, my question to you, Superintendent White, is were there any intervention put in place? Because apparently they say this has been going on across within the articles for the past 2 years. So if your monitoring team is supposed to go out,
there absolutely was, but there's a time when interventions are not enough, and you need to simply, you need to simply say enough is enough.
I want to know what the interventions were. What were the interventions that were put in place for this school?
We did a number of visits. We've provided a lot of guidance over the years to the administrators of this school. I'm happy to detail it for you. There is no decision in front of this board.
Well, I would like to see the.
I'm happy to provide it.
I would like that. And I'm making that as a
I think that's a conversation y'all can have after the meeting. Ms. Karen Harper Royal.
Good afternoon again. This process is totally broken. I really think that we need to get away from closing schools as a solution, period. I am one of the biggest advocates you have seen come before you for children with special needs. I know the nature of special needs violations over time in the public school system. And never in my 23 years as being a public school parent have I seen a school shut down for special ed violations. Now, I understand how egregious and serious these issues were, and I have the report, and I understand that there's some allegations of some other things going on at that school, but still, is shutting the school down fixing the problem? The people who did this, the people in this report, they're not even at the school anymore. What process do you have in place to punish those people? The board, the charter board, I guess it was lax in its responsibility to oversee what its administration was doing. What process do you have in place to hold that charter board accountable? What process, BESE, do you have in place to hold the Department of Education accountable for not having uncovered these problems early on and fixed this? If you believe in parent choice, you have a responsibility to protect these parents' choices by going in before you get to a point of where you think you have to close a school. Mr. White, you asked, what else could we have done? And I think this is a time, BESE, for you to think about what else you can do going forward. It is sad that you won't come up with a solution that saves these children and their teachers. Their teachers are wonderful teachers. And I actually could give you a recommendation of how you could actually preserve this learning environment for these children if you are seriously considering finding a way to do that, because these parents' first choice was Lanyap Academies. So what they chose in one app was what they're settling for, because you took their choice away. But if you really want a solution, I can definitely sit down with you and help you craft the solution. In fact, I recommended a solution, which was to go in and remove the staff, get rid of the charter operator, because nobody will condone what they did, and evaluate the staff that is there, but get rid of that administration, and you could have preserved the choice that these parents made. I am no lover of charter schools at all, but I recognize that we're not shutting down a building or portables. We're shutting down an education that these parents chose, and that should not happen in this system. We have to get away from doing that. The teachers basically took over, and had you been actually on site, the teachers contacted the Department of Education to let y'all know that the person who appears in this report, who was in leadership over these teachers, to let you guys know that that person wasn't doing what she was supposed to be doing, even with the closing school checklist. I don't know how you would have known that she wasn't doing it if those teachers had not contacted the department. I have 2 board meetings
Ms. Rowe,
recorded.
I have to ask you to wrap it up.
Yes, sir. I have 2 board meetings recorded where these teachers are telling the Lanyard board what was going on at the school. The Lanyard board was saying, oh, we were duped also. Apparently everybody's being duped, but these children are paying the price. I will wrap up. And so I just want to, the last thing I want to say is please be more mindful of how closing schools affect children. Let's change BESE policy and not close schools because adults do wrong. Let's have the Department of Education go in and kick out the bad charter operator and save the choice that these parents made. There's a way to do this. Let's think about children first in this. This decision can be rescinded, and we can think about children first. We can take that group of teachers right now and save this school. I saw some empty portable buildings on Almanaster. We can move those 160 children there with these wonderful teachers and put new administration in place, and we can continue the school next year because this is what these parents chose. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Royal. Another speaker is, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, Katrina Nadams, or N-D-A-N, I'm sorry. Indana? Indane?
Yes. I want to first of all, give a quote from Desmond Tutu. We have tended to treat the weak, the poor, the unemployed, the failures with disdain because success and power have become the gods at whose altars we have burned incense and bowed our knees. We have tended to be embarrassed by compassion and caring as things that are inappropriate in the harsh, callous world of business, unquote. Superintendent White, you are 1,752 days too late. That's sorry that you gave, because in 2010, you published this. These were the commitments. And according to Commitment 2, the RSD will implement a new monitoring process for New Orleans charter schools while not distracting the educators from educating. So if you had this commitment going, this wouldn't have happened. But I need to go back, because when we look at lagniappe, and it's a misnomer because lagniappe in French means something extra. When we look at lagniappe probably shouldn't have never opened. And the reason I say that is lagniappe started in 2010 in the zoo. So they were like vagabonds. So that's where you should have stopped the problem. You came in 2012 and you stopped the classes from being, that is, like they were taking in 5th and 6th. You said, oh no 5th and 6th or no 6th and 7th. The configuration changed. So in 2012, and I say that means that you are 730 days too late. You are more than 1,000 days too late, because you knew that there was a problem in 2012. You brought it to the BESE board about the problems that were happening in Lagniappe. And so since there were problems, we're not going to take in any more children. You knew there was a problem.
Ma'am, I need you to come to a conclusion, please.
I'm also going to say that you failed Commitment 8. You published this. What will it take? Commitment 8 was a commitment that you made to the parents and to the community. So you failed on that one because you did not get information, you did not get questions answered, you did not get issues resolved. That's what you said in Commitment 8. And then the last commitment is that Commitment 10, schools in temporary homes or trailers will have a long-term home identified by the end of 2011 calendar year. I didn't publish this. RSD published it, RSD Louisiana, but this is in particular about schools in New Orleans. So it's not about whether it's 163 students or one student. They are human beings just like you, and they deserve the same respect. They are human beings just like you. They deserve the same respect.
Thank you.
Parents deserve the respect.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from BESE members? Hearing none, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have any objections to the motion? Hearing none, the motion carries. Next item.
Your next item is on page 8, item 3.1, consideration of policy related to the Recovery School District management issues. The revised recommendation is to defer until June 2015.
Do we have a motion to defer? Ms. Bradford? We have a second. Ms. Jones? Do we have any questions from BESE members?
So, yes. So 3.1 we're deferring?
Yes, we're going to raise this.
Because I see it said approve or...
We're going to raise this at the June meeting.
So why, I mean, what's the purpose? Can you elaborate why you want to defer? Is there a particular issue or something?
It's an issue that relates to our work with particular new schools, essentially, and agreements that we are arriving at with new schools. There's a scenario in which you have type 1 schools, for example, that are sited in buildings that are still under the governance of the state, and we are establishing a legal arrangement with such instances. As a result, it's taking us time to get there, and we'll bring that back.
So the new schools, what, New Orleans, new schools, Baton Rouge? Is it the new schools, Louisiana, that you guys are trying to?
No, the process that you had encouraged us to run, like the request for application process, such as was done at John McDonough, has resulted in a situation where an Orleans Parish School Board school is being sited in a building that is currently governed by the state. That's a new arrangement, and it just takes us arriving at a new policy construct to do that. We haven't yet finished it. We're working with those organizations and with the Orleans Parish School Board to do that. We just haven't finished it yet.
Okay. We have a couple of speakers. Ms. Royal, do you need to speak to this item? Yes. And Mr. Howard Bailey, Mr. Parker, please.
I understand that you're going to defer this item till
Yes, ma'am.
the June meeting.
So you could speak at the June meeting if you would like.
I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make it to the June meeting, so I'm going to go on and speak now. And I'm glad you're looking at what you're going to be doing with the buildings that you're no longer using. I think about last year when you closed down AP Turo and Banneker, those were two buildings. You actually leased AP Turo back to the Orleans Parish School Board, and Banneker you gave to the KIP primary school, and then there were bats found, and then quickly a building was found for Banneker for KIP primary to move out of the Banneker building. But if we can get rid of the bats at the building, perhaps we can then move the Lanyap teachers and the Lanyap children into the Banneker building and be able to continue that school. Or if it was only a one-year lease of the AP Turo building where the Plessy school is now, maybe we can put the Lanyap kids there. My point is that we can find a way, and we can find a way quickly to put children. We did that when the bats were found in the Banneker building. And when you decided you didn't want to run AP Turo anymore, and you gave that building, you let that building be leased, there certainly is a way that we can save these children at Lanyap and their teachers who are willing to stick with them. And so I just want you to start thinking outside of the box, and I hope I can make it back for the June meeting, but I wanted to just say that while I had the chance and I was here.
Okay, Mr. Parker?
In regards to the issue that's at hand, as far as RSD management, Mr. Dobar sat here and looked y'all in your face and lied. No one has been at this school consistently on a week in and week out basis. And how do I know that? It's because the teachers work very tight in conjunction with the parents. So whenever there's a board meeting or whenever there's a State Department representative that's coming on to the campus, whether it be announced or surprised, they let myself, my wife, Mr. Bailey, or Mr. Anderson know so that we can at least get someone of a parent representative there in that meeting as well. So as far as that concerned, Ms. Christine Baker came one day 2 weeks ago. That's it. There's been no oversight. RSD's had no oversight. There've been no assistance to parents as far as this issue is concerned. We asked for more time in the 1-app process to be able to provide families to do their due diligence on trying to find an adequate school and an adequate environment for their children, and that went to no avail. Yes, they did bring us to go see, well, me personally, one school, and that was Bethune, which we couldn't see because their RSD, that's an OPSB school. I don't want to take my successful child and put him into another unsuccessful school under RSD's watch and have to worry about it being closed again next year. Majority of RSD schools are failing with enormous class sizes. I refuse to subject my son to that. It's not fair to him. And I stand here saying that no other child should have to submit to that. So granted, we were provided with the closing priority in the 1-app process, but that was only open to other RSD schools. And of course, the few successful schools that they do have within the district, we're going to be taken up very quickly, seeing how applications were already submitted prior to the closing date decision for our own school. And I really feel as if, though, if RSD is going to act as if they're an operating school board, which in a way they should, which in a way they are, they should have public meetings and not meeting private.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey.
Absolutely. And just to speak real quickly to the open public meetings, there is none. There's no way. As a matter of fact, the Recovery School District moved from a neighborhood building to Poydras Street. That in and of itself restricts parents in a way that to open access. And I mean, that's a management issue. Why not have the people in which you're serving be available to come and speak with you? And Mr. Parker was also alluding to the C, D, and F schools. Over 60% of our schools in our recovery school district are C, D, and F schools. So that means we're not looking at 60,000 schools, 60,000 students that were the numbers you were using. There are so many Orleans Parish schools. As a matter of fact, every single Orleans Parish school is a successful school. And that's the bucket that our parents can't even get into. In fact, the decision to close down our school and the decision for parents to actually submit an application to those successful schools such as Lusher or Ben Franklin or Audubon or the closed access schools, Lake Forest Charter School on Haynes Boulevard, those schools, they weren't allotted to us. We were in the bucket with all the parents fighting for the few A and B schools in the Recovery School District. And there's just no oversight. There's a lack of oversight. There's a lack of management. And that's what I'm talking about. The 1-app process, there is no process. There's no due process even. There's no due process. We are just a few parents. As a matter of fact, Mr. Parker's wife back there, she's actually on the school grounds every single day. So she's volunteering at the school. So we know what's going on at the school. There's no way that you guys can sit up here and tell us that there's somebody over at the school. Maybe he's getting misinformation, but if he's getting misinformation, that's
Bailey,
lack of management.
We need you to come to a conclusion.
Okay, so concluding, those management issues, as far as your numbers, as far as not knowing that there are actually schools that are going to be available next year, we actually have school buildings. The Arise building that they're using on Orleans Avenue, that building will become available. They're getting a new school built in my old elementary school, John A. Shaw, in the St. Roch neighborhood. And so that building will become available. There are several other schools that will become available to us, and you can place our students inside of there. And if it's not a money issue, as you said, I didn't say it, if it's not a money issue, why can't our students stay together like we chose and be in a successful environment? Get rid of, I'm not telling you to keep
Mr. Bailey,
the
we
board.
need you to come to a conclusion.
Get rid of the board. Keep our students together. We need to remain together and intact because the evidence is all there in what you're seeing right now, and you're just breeding criminality in the future.
Thank you. Okay, board members, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have any questions from BESE members? Hearing none, do we have any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item.
Your next item is on page 16, item 4.1, consideration of the citing of Wilson Charter School. The revised recommendation is to delete this item.
Can we get a motion to that effect? Ms. Bradford? Ms. Jones, second? Thank you. Do we have any questions from BESE members?
Why is it being deleted?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This was originally going to be a set up as a contract between the Orleans Parish School Board, the Inspire NOLA organization, and the BESE board. We've been advised by attorneys on all sides that needn't be a contract. It can be a facilities lease. should be a facilities lease and need not involve the Orleans Parish School Board. Therefore, this document is not appropriate for BESE approval.
Okay, we have a speaker, Ms. Royal.
I just want to make sure that I understand. The item is being deleted because it doesn't require BESE action, but that doesn't mean that this action isn't going to happen. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, well, my card was in support of, because anytime we can get schools back under local control, it keeps parents off the road like these parents have been on the road to have to come here. And I really hope that BESE will consider some more creative ways to serve the parents of New Orleans inside of New Orleans when critical decisions are being made, so that they don't have to come all the way here. Because if you remember, when you made the decision to non-renew Lanyap, it was another really, really stormy day like this one, and that was one of the reasons some of us could not make it up here. It was even worse weather than today. So if you can be even more creative, whether it's by contracts or whatever, ways to keep those decisions being made inside of the city of New Orleans, that really demonstrates a commitment to serving the parents whose children your decisions affect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions from BESE members? Hearing none, do we have any objections to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Does that conclude our agenda?
That concludes the agenda.
Thank you.